Hey, friends, welcome to the Stride podcast. So, it's we're going through some pretty amazing and exciting times at Next Stride because we're this close to going public with our platform, and it's a like I'm super excited about this step because like while I struggle to explain how revolutionary I think this whole sports sponsorship 3.0 thing is, I sincerely believe that we're just going to completely change how sports sponsorship works at scale, at every level of competition, at any region, at any sport. And we've put more than a year into this project so far, and now we're getting very, very, very close to the release. So yeah, I'm just excited and proud of the team. But okay, you're not here to listen to me babble about next ride per se. You're here to hear about an athlete, and you're going to be hearing about the pretty spectacular athlete today. So today we're going to be talking with Francesco Carbone from Italia, and he's an amazing trail runner. And so to give you an impression of what I mean when I say impressive, like imagine yourself running like ultra distances and climbing an elevation equal to the height of Mount Everest while you're at it. Yeah, just amazing stuff. It's such a cool job to get to talk to all these people and just hear them out and so on. So and but okay, enough of me blah 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 to you. Let's go to the interview. Good to have you here with the Stride. Hello, Francesco. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. You?
All right. All good. All good. Thank you. So, are you joining today from Italy, or are you traveling at the moment?
Yes, I'm in Italy. I'm at home.
Okay. Okay. So, today we're going to be talking about trail running and I would say pretty heavy duty trail running that you do. And I'm actually like super excited about this discussion because um, yeah, like trail running has developed obviously into a pretty robust sport, and there's a lot to be discussed about how it works today and how the competitive scene is and everything like that. Um, but like before we go there, I'd like to get to know Francesco uh, first, like as a person. So like can we start with like where were you born? Like how did Francesco's life get started?
Yes, I was born in Aosta Valley, a really small region in the northwest of Italy, a small region near to the mountains, where I was born and where I studied and where I began my passion for mountains and also mountain sports like skiing, running, cycling also. Then I went
Yeah.
a little bit far from my region to Turin, and I studied. I studied there. I studied engineering, and it's my profession is engineering. Then after studying, I came back to my region in Aosta Valley, and now I'm working here, and I'm taking my passion as a sport during my free time, during trail running races, and also skiing, cycling, and everything.
Was there like was trail running already like a competitive sport when you was a kid, or was it just sort of something that you did as a kid growing up in the mountains?
I was a kid. It wasn't really a sport with races, and it wasn't very competitive. And it was I practice more like hiking or trekking, but not really races or competitions. And but even when I was a child, I also practice football, for example, which is a completely different sport, but it's a sport where you run a lot. So it was also something that made me approach to running. But it wasn't really a competition. It wasn't really a sport that made me do competitions, trail running. And also in general in my region, very few people practice the trail running for competitions. Only in the last in the last few years, trail running has developed a lot, and most a lot of people are doing races and everything.
Okay, so it was like more like a sort of maybe originally like more like a training method for other sports
Yes.
before it developed into like into its own sport. Okay, and so I'm curious to know, like when you say that you used to do like hiking and trekking in the mountains, like obviously the Italian mountains can be quite challenging and everything. So where do you draw the line personally between mountain hiking and mountain climbing? Where do you draw the line?
When it was when I saw that I was enjoying hiking and trekking, and I thought that maybe it, I was able to do something more than only having fun, only hiking and walking and trekking. And I wanted something more like a competition. And it was
Yeah,
that moment when I decided to train more and do hiking, also watching times, watching the time
yeah,
I took to climb up, up a mountain and try every time to take less time and improve.
yeah, and well, it makes sense. Like I think that like I've said this often that the difference between exercise and sport is that sport always produces a result. Like you get a time or a score or something like that, and that's what turns exercise into sport, and that allows you to determine who's best, and maybe that's the function of sport. So, okay, so you really started getting sort of serious in about trail running, like after going and getting your education and moving back to your old neighborhood, so to speak. And so, did you immediately then start competing, or was it just that you first sort of started running more and or how did it happen, the transition into competitions?
I started trying doing some competitions, and the first time was like a try. So I wanted to see what was which was the sensation during a competition. And then after the first one,
Yeah,
I tried with the second one, and then the third one. It was like some experiments, and and then uh, after every race, I always trained more to improve, and then my focus was more on competitions than only hiking. So I think it was
yeah,
like a step-by-step process. So once a race, once during
did
during a race, then the second one, then the third one, and it wasn't even planned, but it was something I did trying and seeing
yeah,
what I feel.
as like sort of an evolution. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like this is something that I like to ask people, like when you started competing, did it change the way that you actually train and practice? Did it change the way you think about practice?
Yes. The first year I only trained by myself, trying to do the best of myself, but without following a plan, and only trying to enjoy and be happy doing what I did. But from the second year, I started also following a plan. So I asked for a schedule from a coach, from a trail running coach, and I tried following a training plan, and I saw also some improvements. Then last year I tried again alone, training alone without a coach, and I tried to follow the plan of the year before, but also try
Yeah,
to see my sensations and to try to follow my what I learned from the plan, but only by myself. Then from next year, I'm trying to follow another coach, so I'm moving to another training coach, because I think also trying different methods could make me improve and make me run better and learn also more about how to train and how to improve better. So
yeah,
the difference was that before I only trained to enjoy and to see the results, but without a plan. And then I moved to a
yeah.
real plan, because it makes arrive to better results.
Yeah. Is there, like, if you think about the sort of the competitive season in trail running, and you look at the sort of calendar year, um, i- and is there sort of like a different phases to training in at different times of the year to get the optimal results? Like in some sports, for example, if the let's say that you have the competitive season is more like in the winter, then like in after the summer the athletes are more like maybe like building strength to their body, and once one then they transition more towards like endurance after that, and then only like when they get close to the racing season they start working on improving their speed. So is there something similar like a schedule in trail running in your
Yes,
experience?
yes, it's the same for trail running. Now it's the period to build the strength. Between November and
Yeah,
December, it's the period to build strength. Then when the spring is coming, also the first races are coming, and you start building some volumes of to increase volumes of training, and start doing some speed training also to improve speed. And then
yeah,
the core period with most of the races is during summer, and then you have to complete your to do what you trained for, so to to
yeah.
experience what you learn.
We also use like some training aids like heart rate monitors and or applications like Strava or something like that to also like help you sort of figure out where you how you're performing in your training and progressing.
Yes, I have an heart rate to measure my wrist heart rate, and I also have a watch, a Garmin watch to to measure my statistics during my training, and I also have a Strava application to monitor my results. Yes.
I have to find you on Strava because I really want to see your performance level, because like if we talk about the distances a little bit, like I think that the average listener might not know much about trail running, but the let's say that the version of trail running that you do is it's quite demanding. So like, can you give an example of like, well, for example, what was your like previous race? Like, can you talk about the length and the elevation that we're talking about here?
This year, my longest race this year was 110 kilometers with 8,000 meters of elevation gain in just one day. And last year it was even longer, because last year it was 140 kilometers and 10,000 meters of elevation gain in 30 hours. So a little bit more than one day. So
Those are
it's a
some
very long
crazy numbers. So you're yeah, because you're like, just like this year's longest, it's like a little bit over 2.5 marathons in a row, and then you end up climbing basically one Mount Everest while while you're doing it. So it's like, those are like pretty crazy numbers. Yeah. So I really want to see like your training data. I'm like a little bit of a training data geek, so, and I really love watching like how people perform and how they improve their stats over time, and then try to make educated guesses of how their performance in the race is going to turn out. So I'm going to be really curious to look at yours. But like like how did you get to that point where suddenly you come to the conclusion that, hey, yeah, 110 kilometers and 8,000 meters, yeah, that sounds like a fun plan, so let's do that. So like like how like have you always run these like ultra distances, or like when did that come into play, that you just figured out that, okay, like a marathon is one thing, but I want to actually run like longer distances?
Yes, I started thinking about this aim already when I was a teenager, because it's a competition in my region very famous, and there are even longer distances, even 300 kilometers
Yeah,
of race. And it was something that when I was a teenager, it was something I saw like something impossible, but also I saw it like a dream to reach one day. And when I started hiking and trekking and doing more and more distances and uh, uh, and climbing high in the mountain, I thought that maybe it was possible to do something like this. And when
yeah,
I and when I started training with a plan with my first coach, I this aim this race changed from a dream to a real aim, a real objective. So this was the point that I started thinking about this race as a something real and not only an impossible dream. And then I started
yeah.
training. It was a, a 1 year of training, because I decided it 1 year before, and then I reached this difficult goal.
Yeah. Like, I think that one of the differences too, like if you compare, for example, marathons. I was just watching the Athens Classic Marathon this weekend, and obviously, like it's a pretty huge event, and there's a lot of spectators, and there's a lot of runners, really a lot of runners, and so it's sort of like a team effort in a sense, because you're surrounded by all these other people. But I imagine that the races that you do, you have people in the starting line, and you probably have people at the finish line. But is it correct to assume that most of the time you're running pretty much all by yourself.
Yes, it's true. It's true because you have a lot of people competing, but the race is very long, and the space between the start line and the end line is very long, and people are distributing between this path, and most of the time you are alone because
Yeah.
you are with other people in the first part because you start all together, and then after a while you are all alone following your own pace,
Yeah.
and you have to do what you can do, not thinking about the others. And then some of them are not don't arrive to the end, so some of them retires. Some of them you reach them during the race and you pass them because they started very fast,
Yeah.
and then they didn't they didn't keep their pace until the end. If you keep your pace until the end, it's possible that you pass a lot of people during the race. It's important not to start
Yeah.
fast, but start slowly, but continue with your pace until the end.
Yeah. I've had one good sort of experience of or a lesson about the importance of pacing yourself. And this was like years and years ago. I did some mountain climbing, and I was up in the Peruvian Andes, and we were on our way up from the valley to our base camp, and we had our cook with us. And he was a pretty big guy, like and also he was carrying a lot of weight on his back because he was basically carrying the whole kitchen and everyone's food with him. But when we started moving up, I was looking at his pace, and I was like, oh man, like he's pretty slow. I wonder when we're going to get dinner. And I was a young man, and I was a little bit maybe obnoxious there. But like a few hours later, we're still making our way up, and he just walks past me, and I realized that he's walking exactly the same speed he was when we started walking. The difference was that he wasn't slowing down, but I was. And obviously he knew what he was doing, and at the time I didn't know what I was doing. So it's, yeah, I think that pacing yourself is super important. But how do you deal with like running like really like ultra long distances? And yeah, as you said, that it's a pretty lonely game most of the time. So obviously we've got two sets of challenges here. One is the physical challenge. How are your legs and joints and muscles going to deal with the stress? But then the other part of the challenge is the battle that goes on in your head. And like can you explain a little bit like what sort of strategies you have in sort of dealing with your own thoughts?
During the most important thing, I think, is the muscular part, so to be trained physically. But it's also important the mental part, because you must be focused on your pace, and be concentrated also on eating and drinking. So this is an important
Yeah.
thing to be concentrated during the race, because every hour, also every half an hour, you have to eat and drink something. Otherwise, after a while
Yeah.
you lose your energies, and your even if you are physically trained, if you don't uh, fuel your body, you finish your strength. And so this is an important mental strength that you need to have to follow, to remember to eat and drink. Then also
Yeah.
also to think that you can reach the end, it's important always to think that you can do it, because if you start thinking that it's something difficult and maybe you cannot reach the end, then also your physics, your body start getting more more with less energies, and you start slowing down, and then you feel worse, and then you don't reach the end, also in reality. But
Yeah.
it's a combination of all these of all these parts. It's also the best part of long trail running races, because it's not only training but also organizing your race and
Yeah.
and do it following the plan.
Yeah, okay. I hadn't really even considered that there's actually quite a bit of logistics that you need to be thinking about all the time to make sure that you're staying hydrated and fed all the time. And I heard someone say some time ago that like about running long distances, that the mind game is like you cannot win a race by thinking in the right way, but you can lose a race by thinking the wrong way. So I thought that was a good way of putting it, that it's like it can be a deal breaker if you don't know how to think about it, and you start turning it into a too big of a problem for yourself. So then, can we talk about like the food that you eat when you're running? Like uh, you said that yeah, that the races go well beyond 10 hours, or they can go on, I suppose, for more than 24 hours in some cases. So um, like what do you eat during the race, and how much of that do you need to carry with you, versus like are there do you get some supplies along the way from support teams, or how does all of that work?
Yes, there are, in every race there are some base stations where you can eat and drink something, but normally they are after more than 1 hour of trail. So if you only eat during the
Mm.
in these base stations, is not enough. So you you have to carry some snacks, some bars, some gels to integrate some sugars and carbohydrates every half an hour, or at least every hour. So between a base station to the next base station, and then when you reach
Okay.
the next base station, you eat what you feel. I always eat what I feel. If I want some more sugars, I eat more sugars. If I want more bread or more proteins, I eat more proteins. But normally I can feel what I need, and then
Yeah.
always drink something. Every time you eat, you also have to drink something to refuel your body, and also to, to stay hydrate and regain what you lose when you run.
Yeah. So if we talk about the training, like if you're training for 110-kilometer run, I don't assume that like I don't think that that you can really train like train by running those distances. So like, or maybe I'm wrong, but I assume that it's like you do long runs to train, but those long runs probably won't go into 100-kilometer range during the training period. So like when you're preparing for these like long trail runs, how long is a long run in during the training session?
Yes, I can say that more or less a long run is between 50 to 70% of the race you want to reach. For example, for the
Okay.
longest training I did before before last year race. So when I was preparing the 140 kilometers race, my longest run was of 90 kilometers. And this year, my longest run was of 70 kilometers to prepare 110 kilometers. So
Yeah.
more or less is
How do
less
you
than
organize?
70%.
How do you organize that? Because then obviously when it's just the training season, you don't have the race organization there to provide you with food on the way. So is that where also the coach steps in, or like how do you do that?
Yes, it's even more difficult than the race maybe because you have to carry more food with you and to eat only with the what with what you take with you. Or you can also organize it with some restaurants or something during the training, but it's not
Mm.
really the same as the race condition. So it's even more
Yeah.
difficult to organize than the race itself. But it's also important. It's also important to be self sufficient with also without the base stations.
Mm.
So it's also a training
Yeah.
for uh, being alone without base stations and be trained to eat only with what you carry with you. So it's also a
Yeah.
train for the
Switching tracks a little bit here. Let's talk about the sort of organized trail running competitions. So you have is it so that there's now basically a global ranking for competitive trail runners?
Yes, there is a global ranking which is the UTMB index, which is a ranking organized by the UTMB is Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc. It is a circuit for runners, and it organized
Mm.
a circuit with points for every race that you practice. And every time you complete a race,
Yeah.
you get a result, and you have your ranking. And there are a lot of people with this in this ranking and classification. So it's good to see to know the level of your competitors.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that trail running has done a really good job as a sport overall in creating one system that allows for pretty easy comparison and also see the progress of an athlete because it's sort of simple and you don't need to guess around by comparing just a bunch of like individual race results and try and figure out who's the best. But how do you feel about the system? Is it do you think that it's a fair system? What's your experience?
I think it's a fair system and it's realistic. The more or less the ranking is realistic with uh, with the performances of the competitors. But not all the races are in this ranking. So if you do a good result
Ah,
in a race not ranked, then you lose this result. So you have to compete in their circuit to get your ranking. Otherwise, you lose your results. So this is the
okay.
not a good point because you have to follow this circuit. Otherwise, you don't get results.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that's was why I asked this, because I think that it's sort of a universal thing that every system is flawed, but like every system like has pros and cons and some strengths and some weaknesses, and yeah, I think that for this like global ranking system, there is a tendency that it doesn't like I don't think that there's in any sport a truly global ranking system which would recognize all the competitions. So it's always a subset that these are the authorized or official competitions which we score, and then everything else is sort of second rate competitions, and that creates obviously a problem in its own. But I think that it is still a step in the right direction. But that's just my take on it. But so then, as a competitive trail runner, a runner in this system, Francesco, how do you set your goals then? Is like is do you set your goal that you want to get to a certain ranking or get a certain score, or is it that you're thinking about individual events, that this is what I want to achieve, or is it that you want to get like a specific result, that you want to go like below X number of hours on in a specific competition? Like how do you set your goals?
Personally, I prefer to set goals for individual competitions. So I would like to my next goal is to complete the UTMB competition, UTMB race below the 30 hours, because it's a goal that
Yeah,
I know that with a plan I can achieve. And I don't really like setting a goal for ranking, because it doesn't depend only on my performance, but also on other people
yeah,
performance. So I prefer to set goals that I can achieve depending on my performance only. So it's better
yeah.
to for me to feel better.
Yeah. Okay. So can you reiterate what's your goal? Like if we look at next season, like 2025, what's the next big milestone that you're aiming for?
My next goal is to complete one of the major of UTMB circuit. So my biggest goal is UTMB race itself, which is
Yeah.
the main one, the most important race of the circuit, which is 170 kilometers and 10,000 meters of elevation gain. So this is my biggest goal for next year. In
So 8,000 meters wasn't enough.
exactly. And my,
Yeah.
my second possibility is another one, which is also 10,000 meters, but is 145 kilometers, which is only
Yeah.
a small step more, but not reaching already the most famous one, but doing one more step before getting to the goal.
Yeah. Are those races like could you sign up for those races today, or is there a some sort of a like a qualification process that you need to like maybe win some smaller competition? How does that work, or are they qualified races?
For this particular race, you have to wait for a there are some races that you if you can if you if you get to the first places, you directly go you directly can can subscribe to the race, but otherwise you have to wait for the sorting of of the people, and you have to follow the to to be lucky, and be only few people can participate to this race, but only for this particular one. For the other one, you can say I want to do it, and there are not difficulties to enter, and you can participate.
What sort of support do you currently have um, as an athlete? Like, do you currently have sponsors supporting you, or are you basically bootstrapping this by yourself?
No, I don't have sponsors yet. I would like to find some brands, maybe that can help me to afford also trainings and shoes, and what I wear, and also what I eat and
Yeah,
drink. But I don't have a sponsor yet.
yeah, yeah. I think that like I remember having this discussion years ago with someone who was driving long distance sled dog races. That they said that they found it difficult to sort of create content around it because it's just such a very long race when you're out there for days on end that it's difficult to keep up people's interest and but then over time that person actually like created one pretty clever thing that they sort of did, which they were able to get sponsors for. So before a big race, he basically split the race into these different segments. And before the race, he recorded his own predictions of how he was going to tackle each of these segments and what what he thinks are going to be the most like significant challenges there, and how he's going to sort of strategize around them and stuff like that. And then he created this sort of like a social media plan with the sponsor. So during this race, the sponsor would actually release these videos, and then they would compare it to what was actually happening in the race. And they created this very interesting narrative around how well he was able to predict his own performance. And then it was also tied to some of the products from the brand. And I think that was actually a very clever thing because it's like, and it's sort of like resembles like the one of the challenges that trail running has, which is the length of the competition. But I think that the lesson there is, I think both for the athletes and the brands, is that you can turn sort of like any like feature of a sport and turn that into a vehicle to actually create these stories. And I think that you could do something like that also in a trail run. That like here's sort of Francesco's plan, and you sort of reveal it bit by bit, and then you compare it to how things are going in the actual race at the same time. What do you think of something like that?
It's interesting. It's a way to get people involved on, and follow with more interest a race, because I can imagine that watching a very long race, it's not possible because it's too long, too many hours, and it's a good idea. It's a good idea to to get interest, and it's also difficult to predict exactly your pace during the segments, but I think it's
Yeah,
possible to predict with a good more or less precision, because when you plan a race, you also plan your pace, so more or less you can predict
of course.
your pace.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that like even if it turns out that the predictions didn't quite match the reality, I think that also like that can be turned into authenticity. That it doesn't need to be things don't need to go exactly as planned. It can still be a successful race, and I think that sort of cutting the experience into these smaller bits for the spectators helps to turn a 30-hour race into 30-second clips, because like 30 seconds is the maximum attention span that most people have nowadays. So that, I think that, yeah, it helps to address that problem. And but I think that overall, like I think that trail running is definitely one of those sports which is starting to now get people's attention and interest, and also like all of those ultra distances are starting to become of more interest to more people over time. So I think that there's something there that really like gets people's imagination running, and they find it fascinating to try and figure out like how can guys like you pull something like that off, because for the average Joe, it just seems completely impossible, just like it did for you when you were small. But now you're doing it.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's not really impossible. It's
Yeah. Humans are curious creatures in the sense that we can sort of adapt ourselves into almost anything. With enough training and perseverance, we can we can do really, really amazing stuff. And I think that what you're doing on the trail runs is definitely a testament to that. So when is the next race? So you said that it's in the springtime. Now you're in the strength building phase. Then then you transition into endurance training, and but then is it somewhere like in April, in May? When does the first competitions kick off?
I I planned my first one already in March. March,
Oh,
beginning of
March.
March,
Okay.
my first race.
Okay. And well, considering the environments that you're usually running, competing somewhere up in the mountains, so you will still have plenty of snow around at that point.
Yes, in my region in March is impossible to do trail running because people are still skiing more than trail running. But in some other
Yeah.
regions, also in Italy, also in the north of Italy, like 2 hours by car from my home, there are some trail running races shorter than my goals, but enough to start racing and competing. And also last year,
So that was actually earlier than I expected. Yeah.
I was saying last year I also started racing with the ski mountaineering races because it was
Yeah.
also a good a good way to start racing, staying in my region, because you can also start competing with ski mountaineering, which is similar to trail running, and then around May, end of April or May, you do a transition between ski mountaineering to trail running, and then you start doing specific races like trail running in May.
Yeah.
But next year I'm
Okay,
starting
so it's like
with trail
complementary. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So okay, so it's like a complementary sport that the two sports have um seasons which can be combined, so that it doesn't interfere with your training for trail running, but it actually supports it.
yes.
Okay. I think that we've covered a lot today. I think the trail running, as I said, I think that it's a fascinating sport, and I'm still like I'm just puzzled at how you can do it, and I'll be thrilled to keep tabs on how you perform and keep progressing in the sport. And any final thoughts that you would like to share with the listeners of the Stride?
Maybe if you want to start doing these races, a suggestion that I want to say is that you have to follow what you like, not to see the final goal, which is you see it like impossible, but start doing what you like, and then step by step improving, and then setting your goals more and more difficult, and only after maybe 1 or 2 years setting a very difficult goal like a 100 kilometers race, and not
Yeah,
starting at the beginning with this goal because it's really impossible if you if you start with this distance.
yeah, yeah. Well, as you said in the beginning, it's important to pace yourself. So also, like in setting goals, to pace yourself and then keep going. Wise words, Francesco. Thank you very much for this interview. It was a pleasure to get to know you and learn about trail running. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you again later and next season and see how things turn out.
Thanks. It was a pleasure also for me, and it was nice to do this interview.
All right. Good times. Okay. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into Stride, where we elevate the game for emerging talent in niche sports. Before you go, here's a quick recap of what Next Stride is all about. At Next Stride, we're driven by one mission: to revolutionise how athletes in niche and emerging sports are recognised and supported. We connect athletes and federations and brands through a trusted, transparent platform, creating real opportunities for growth and long-term success. Whether you're an athlete, federation, or a brand, Next Stride ensures your achievements, support, and sponsorships are recognised and rewarded. To athletes, join Next Stride to get verified recognition for your achievements and access sponsorships that value your potential. To sports federations, partner with us to drive recognition, improve operations, and open new sponsorship avenues for your athletes. To brands, looking for authentic connections with athletes and fans in niche sports? We provide a diverse range of talent, offering transparency and superior return on investment. Visit us at nextstride.com to learn more. And a special thank you to Arttu Silvast, who composes and produces all of the music and audio for Stride. We'll see you next time. Keep pushing forward.